Most coverage frames this war as a zero-sum game of Russian victory or Ukrainian defeat, but that binary trap fails because it assumes both sides are still playing for the same prize they wanted in February 2022, total regime change and rapid conquest. The reality is far more calculated. Russia has abandoned the blitzkrieg entirely to wage a grinding war designed not to capture Kyiv quickly, but to bleed Ukraine dry until Western political will collapses. This shift explains why Russian forces are advancing at only 50 meters per day, slower than World War I's Battle of the Somme, yet Moscow claims strategic initiative. They aren't trying to win a sprint, they are betting on a marathon where their enemy has an expiration date, but Russia does not. To understand this new phase, we must distinguish between what happened in the first 5 weeks of the conflict and where we stand today. In February and March 2022, Russia seized approximately 120,000 square kilometers in a failed attempt at regime change through rapid conquest. That strategy was clearly exhausted by early spring when Moscow's tanks stalled outside Kyiv. Since January 2024, however, the objective has fundamentally shifted from seizing territory to inflicting attrition. The Kremlin no longer measures success by how many cities fall per month, but by the rate at which it can drain Western resources and Ukrainian manpower over time. This is a deliberate pivot from a war of maneuver to a war of exhaustion, where speed is not just unnecessary, but counterproductive if it risks depleting human capital too quickly for the long haul ahead. The cost of this attrition strategy reveals the desperate gamble Moscow has undertaken. By early 2026, Russia has suffered an estimated 1.2 million total casualties, a figure that exceeds losses for any major power since World War II. To sustain the pace required to grind down Ukrainian defenses without possessing modern maneuver capabilities, Russian forces rely on static trench lines and mass artillery barrages. This results in combat death rates roughly 35 times higher than the average during the Afghanistan war per month. The logic driving this is stark. Even with such horrific human losses, the Kremlin views the conflict as a forever war where they can outlast their opponents if they maintain pressure long enough to fracture alliance cohesion or exhaust Ukraine's manpower reserves completely. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. This economic strain further clarifies why Russia has adopted this slow but relentless approach while simultaneously justifying its necessity at home. While initially resilient under sanctions, Russia's economy is now stagnating with growth of only 0.6% in 2025. Half of the national budget is consumed by military-industrial spending and debt servicing, creating a fiscal environment that would be unsustainable for most nations indefinitely. Yet, this economic pressure does not deter Moscow because their strategic calculation prioritizes endurance over immediate prosperity. The Kremlin believes that even with a shrinking economy, they can outlast Western democracies if the war drags on long enough to exhaust Ukraine's manpower and force a political reckoning in Washington or Brussels regarding how much more blood and treasure should be spent defending Ukrainian sovereignty. The tactical reality of this new strategy is visible in every meter gained on the battlefield. During recent offensives toward Pokrovsk, Russian forces advanced at an average rate of 70 meters per day. Over 2 years, stretching from Avdiivka to Pokrovsk, they have covered less than 50 kilometers total. Since January 2024, Russia has captured fewer than 1% of Ukrainian territory, roughly 5,000 square kilometers. This is a deliberate trade-off, sacrificing speed for the ability to grind down elite Ukrainian units and Western supply lines over years rather than weeks. The goal isn't to take Kharkiv today. It is to force Ukraine into a position where they cannot replace their losses faster than Moscow can inflict them, turning every kilometer of ground gained into a strategic victory that comes at an acceptable cost in human life for the Russian state. This dynamic creates a profound dilemma for Western policymakers and explains why diplomatic efforts have stalled despite calls from various international actors to end the fighting. Putin refuses direct talks with President Zelensky because the Kremlin believes time is on their side. provided they can wait out the West's political will first. The war has become a test of endurance rather than just firepower or tactical superiority. If Russia can keep grinding for 2 more years, they win by default if Western democracies grow tired of funding the conflict and fracture over domestic economic pressures. This is why peace talks are stuck. Putin isn't negotiating a surrender based on current battlefield positions. He is waiting for an expiration date on his enemy's patience to arrive so that long-term territorial leverage can be secured without further costly fighting. Ultimately, viewing this through an old lens leads to confusion where every tactical loss looks like strategic failure or vice versa. The binary of winning and losing is now obsolete because the definition of victory has changed for both sides. For Russia, success means breaking the political will that sustains Ukraine's borders rather than capturing Kyiv or Sevastopol again. Even if Russian forces never take these major cities, this strategy aims to permanently block Ukraine from NATO integration by making the cost of joining too high for any Western power willing to defend it indefinitely. The war is no longer about who holds the most land today. It is about which side runs out of men and money first. Understanding that Russia's slow advance is a feature, not a bug, allows us to see why Moscow claims strategic initiative despite moving only 50 meters per day. The outcome of this conflict will likely be determined not by a single decisive battle or the fall of a capital city, but by which side can sustain their respective costs for the longest period without collapsing politically or economically. Russia is betting that its ability to absorb human loss and economic strain outweighs the West's tolerance for prolonged engagement in Eastern Europe. Ukraine faces an existential question regarding whether it can maintain its defensive capabilities while replacing losses at a rate faster than Moscow inflicts them, all while relying on external aid that may fluctuate with changing political winds back home. This is not a war of conquest anymore. It is a test of endurance where the only metric that matters is who breaks first under the weight of their own strategic choices. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.